Welcome back to the Build Phase podcast here, brought to you by XP League Frisco. It is an ESTA podcast that we have going on every other week. I am joined by the founder of ESTA. We call her MVP. That's what her initials stand for. But Megan, I'm going to toss it to you to introduce yourself and just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do as part of ESTA.
Yeah. What a nickname, right?
Perfect, right?
Well, it's funny that I actually don't think my parents really thought it through. But I picked up the nickname when I started working in fantasy sports a long time ago, and it has stuck. It has definitely stuck. So it's funny. It's fun. Thank you. Let's see. I run a company called Van Petten Group. It's a small boutique company that is a not-for-profit solution partner. And years ago, we had many not-for-profits under management. And just the last 10 years or so, we've slowed down, and especially since COVID. We haven't renewed any contracts since COVID. So we just we managed our growth and stayed with what was inspiring and what we enjoyed. We're a small team. And when I say managing growth, it's something we'll talk about later in the show, but it's important to make sure you're doing what you love versus, what you're doing and why you're doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
Thanks
sure.
for
Yeah, well, of course. And Megan, the nickname is perfect for what you've done with the Fantasy Trade Association, and then now being in the Esports Trade Association. Take us back to kind of that path. I know you have like you said, your nonprofit and stuff. But take us back a little bit to that, as well as your history with FSTA and kind of what that has led to being in ESTA, the experiences that you've gotten, the progress you've made on those fronts, and how that's bleeding into what we're able to do here at ESTA.
If I go back to the very beginning, when you're a not-for-profit managing group, you get requests for proposals from people. So there's associations and foundations for anything. And when I got the request for proposal from the Fantasy Sports Trade Association, my brother, all three of them, loved fantasy sports.
Of course.
My oldest brother is the commissioner, and they have been a working fantasy sports team, from as long as I can remember. And I just was really, I have all brothers. I was really present to how much they loved each other, played together, the camaraderie. So I called my little brother and I said, this would be fun. This would be a cool association. And he said, if you do it, I'll manage your fantasy league. And I thought, well, that would be fun because I could play more with my brother, who, I adore. And so he just couldn't believe the people on the board, too, because it was a small association when I started that one. When they hired my group.
Gotcha.
So, Matt Berry, Paul Charchian, all these greats, just to name a couple. And, my brother was like, I will come to your first conference, work, security, athlete, all these things. And my brother was a very large, my little brother was a really large athlete fireman. So he got certified in being a security guard.
Easily. I'm sure that was like, they just looked at him and said, check.
Exactly. It was just so fun. It was just such a good time. And I'm so glad I did it. But that was originally why I did it, because I didn't really feel like, what can I do for, I wasn't what my brothers were. I was just a witness to people that play together, stay together. And after about a decade or so, things were starting to get very tumultuous in that industry, and it was starting to be becoming very heavy in the Vegas gambling.
Yeah.
It went from a really small niche fun, you win $100 to really big business that
Yeah.
wasn't really my passion.
Mm.
And so I wasn't feeling the joy anymore there.
Yeah.
Um, so I started looking around at what to do because what I knew fantasy sports was, it was not that.
Mm.
It wasn't going into that anymore. So, and remember, we used to write it in these big, huge boxes and squares for the draft. And I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah. I mean, you had the
I mean,
boards. Everyone's over at the
it's
same
old
house.
school.
Yeah.
Right, old
Yes.
school. So I'll never forget. We were in New York and we were at our conference, and we had a really good panel about esports.
Mm.
And at that time, it was just all things electronically delivered,
Sure.
like email.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool. I mean, I remember the panel. It was super interesting. I grew up with my brothers with an Atari,
Yeah.
video gaming myself. I mean, like every restaurant, anything we ever did, we played. I never won. I was never good, nor did I ever win at fantasy. Like two things I was just never, ever good at. I've never seen my name when you see the winners on Pac-Man or
Yeah.
anything. I've
On the
never
top
seen
10
it. No,
leaderboard. Yeah. The
it was
initials. Yeah.
100%. It was JVP and TVP all the time. Never me. Um, and so we were starting to review
Hmm.
proposals internally, like who should we, what association or foundation should we manage next? And my director of marketing, Greg Smith, who's been with me forever, who's the editor of this magazine,
Yes. Yes.
won his tournament when he was in fifth grade, and it changed his life.
That's awesome.
So this is like, we're going back, this is like 2016.
Hmm.
And Greg says, the esports industry needs what we do.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
don't have it. So we did like a deep dive. Globally, they had some things, but like at that time, we looked and he just said, why don't we just do what we're doing here now in the esports space?
Mm.
And lo and behold, Greg, we've got the same team with us that incorporated that day. It's
Yeah.
me and Greg and Lindsay, who
Wow.
you'll see at the conference.
Yep.
But Greg's favorite thing was growing up video gaming and competing, and he was good. And he is the, writer to so many stories. And
Mm.
I just loved what we had built together in the fantasy space because we grew that membership organization from
Yeah.
40 when I started to 400 at
Wow.
that time. With my last conference, Mark Cuban attending.
That's
And
awesome.
yes, it was. It was super awesome. I can't say enough about the crew that hired me,
Hmm.
that are still there today as past board members and founding board members. And I was the first person that they ever hired. They
Wow.
were a club that turned into a private organization. And when you join an association, because it's kind of old school, right? It's
Yeah.
trade association. What the heck is it anyways?
Hmm.
Join an association and you stay, call me after 5 years, call me after 10 years, call me after 15 years.
Yeah.
You end up starting businesses together. You get married together. You have children together. Some get divorces together.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like I just saw what my brothers had in their fantasy,
Mm.
and then I saw what this board has had in their lifetime of working together.
Yeah.
There's one board member I know, Rick Wolf, that has never missed a conference, and he counts every one of them at the
That is
fantasy.
amazing.
So we had all the infrastructure, and we came with a mission where we were really happy we did it,
Yeah.
but it was far more navigating than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, no, I mean that's awesome that you've gotten to work with this team, like you said, from starting, with just 40 members, in the Fantasy Sports Trade Association, right, and then getting to bring that same team that had so much success over there and bringing them into ESTA, right? I'm sure, that has been, incredible, to be able to just bring all that knowledge and skill and history into ESTA. You mentioned that, that was 2016 when you first kind of heard about, esports. Y'all had your esports panel and things like that, right? That got y'all interested. If I'm remembering correctly, y'all founded ESTA 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome.
You're
Yeah.
right, because it took a lot of due diligence.
Hmm.
We had a lot of meetings. We had a behind the scenes roundtable. So until we decided to launch and really do it, though, yeah, it takes about a year, especially with a new industry. So
Oh,
we
of
went
course. Yeah.
around and we studied and we figured, we looked at the players. We definitely didn't want to step on any toes of
Of
things that
course.
were already in existence.
Yeah.
It's very serious when you think about how am I going to spend my next 10 years, or
Yeah.
how am I going to spend the rest of my life?
Hmm.
So it was most important to me that Greg, who is our top strategist
Hmm.
and writer, he loves communicating. It was most important to me that he was really thriving in an association topic he loved.
Yeah.
So, for example, like if we would have ran, and I'm just making this up,
Sure.
like the American Dental Society, it just, like, honestly, if I'm being completely transparent, I don't think Greg would be here.
Sure.
He is here because he loves play. He
That's
loves
awesome.
play. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and he's a behind the scenes guy. Definitely try to meet him.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm so used to having, how do I say this? Lindsay and I were more used to being behind the scenes and just
Mm.
seeing, we were the setup, they
Sure.
were the part. So I've just always had that role, being that I was outnumbered
Yeah.
growing up. My brothers were, so it was always like me doing the lemonade stand alongside their baseball game. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Or
Yes.
me, having the pie, so it was a very traditional role environment that I
Hmm.
grew up in. And I was always just the behind the scenes supporter, even though it looks like I should be on the field cheering because I have an outgoing personality.
Yeah.
It wasn't the way I grew up. I
Mm.
I I was very used to supporting infrastructures, like being in the kitchen
Yeah.
versus being the one competing. Or
Sure.
and my brothers are all athletes. They always took center stage.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like, growing up that way and being in that position, right, has really, led to what y'all do, right? With the trade associations, right? Building that infrastructure, working on it, like you just said, right? I mean, that's what the trade association's for, is like helping build that infrastructure. And, I'm sure as good as anyone, like the esports industry is very fragmented. We're trying to build up infrastructure, but they're all kind of loose conglomerates, all over the place. There's not a lot of connection, right? And I think what's so great about ESTA is like that's what it's meant to be. It's like meant to, bring those people in. It's meant to be that glue, that binding agent for people in the industry, building up the infrastructure, alongside it, right? So I think it's cool, like getting to reflect back on, how you grew up and the role that you had with your brothers, and how that's really what you're able to do, with these trade associations, right? Is be able to bring that, like, it's like we've been working for it like your whole life, like coming into it, that's really awesome. And I mean, Greg sounds like a great guy, great name, by the way. And I know you said he's kind of the background guy, but we're gonna have to get him on this podcast for sure, Megan. Like, we're gonna have to
Oh
push
my
him
gosh.
to get him in
I
here.
don't think he's ever been on a podcast. So that's the other thing I should tell you.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Eric Anderson, our chairman, the other day. Um, and he said, how come I haven't met Lindsay? And I
Mm.
said, so when you're certified in association management and leadership,
Hmm.
you are and truly in the day a servant behind the scenes leader. So
Yeah.
it's my job to get Eric at the podium and manage a board meeting of really busy individuals that are donating their time.
Yeah.
So you have to be like super efficient. Here's the agenda, and just so this was strange when I had to get in front like this.
Yeah.
Like even on this show. So Greg and Lindsay and myself, the original core team, we are behind the scenes people.
Yeah.
Greg is a marketing director for associations.
Gotcha.
He has a strong niche.
Yeah.
And he might have worked in like both Greg and I mean, I've probably worked in 30 associations. Yeah, like any industry you could possibly imagine. I worked in the Semiconductor International Association.
Hey, I'm sure that place is popping off right now, you know?
I know, but it wasn't that popping, but I've also worked in over 20 magazines. In the day, all associations had a magazine that went with it.
Yeah.
So for Greg to get on the show would be amazing. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on him at Esports Next for sure. Like we're gonna bond over some gaming. You know, I'm gonna lure him in, and then all of a sudden he's gonna be on the podcast, and he's gonna have no idea how he got there. So.
I mean, if you can do that, your name will be Gregory the Great.
The Gregory the Great. Yeah. Well, I will try my best to get him on there. Yeah. Well, so kind of touching on some of the aspect that for you're saying like, I'm not used to being the person kind of center stage, like being that person. I mean, that's all I know you, from on the Esports, Trade Association with, outside of like John, right? We can talk about him, just briefly, but, in my interactions, like, on LinkedIn, like, and probably because I don't have Greg or Eric on there, right? But I've got you on there, and you're the one hosting our coffee connections and things like that, right? So, I'm used to, Megan, MVP being the one, kind of center stage, from my lens, right? But, kind of, tell me a little bit more about, the rest of the team kind of, spearheading ESTA, because I know y'all have a lot of, y'all skills is in associations, right? Like Correct. You said, you've worked on, 30, different associations. Y'all have worked on different magazines for associations, right? And so it's really great that we've got y'all as like, here is how associations work, and this is how you lead one. This is how you drive it, and these are the things. So I guess tell me a little bit more about the team. Tell me kind of the directions that y'all have gone, or even stepping back, like what have been the bumps in the road that y'all have had to go through as well with esports. I threw a whole bunch of questions out there at you, so pick what you want, and then we can touch on the rest later.
Well, those are great questions. Let me tell you how I got into it. I worked for a company called Reed. And you've probably heard of Reed exhibits, like events.
Yeah.
Okay. So probably when I was about your age, I worked for a company called Reed Elsevier, and it's a publicly traded company. And they used to have about 100 magazines in the office. And for every magazine, it was about a team of 10. So it was a big office.
Massive,
it was fun.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And they were business magazines, not Oprah magazine.
Sure,
they were, different verticals like real estate, hotels, the hotel industry, event industry, packaging, the restaurants, hospitality, Variety magazine. That's still in existence in Hollywood. That was in-house with us.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So, very cool.
Yeah. They were one of the largest publishing companies in the world. And I'll never forget, like, I was like, this would be so cool. I want to work for Toys. That was one of the magazines.
That sounds that's where I probably would have gone too.
It's what I wanted. I wanted Toys or hotels, because I thought hotels is cool. Like, I wouldn't mind, like, writing up about different new hotels. And guess what magazine I got? I got Plant Engineering.
Hey, I mean, everyone needs, their magazine, right? So,
So I should take that back. I got the engineering vertical.
mm,
So I got plant engineering, control specifying engineering, control engineering, and semiconductor international.
yeah.
Semiconductor International was the association. It was the
Mm,
first time I got to see the difference between a community and a club.
yeah.
So I had 4 magazines that was in my vertical that was under my belt, that I was on 4 different teams in that job. And the only of the 4 magazines, only the Semiconductor International Association was a club, and they were just way different.
Yeah.
So they were committed to each other.
Mm.
Club,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, if you're part of it, right? I mean, everyone's there for each other, right? Like you build off of each other, right?
Yes,
As opposed to like you're saying, like a loose community, right? Where it's like I don't like we're in the same industry, but we don't have like ties together, like that
exactly.
relationship commitment. Yeah.
So it was after about a year serving on all these magazines, which I probably still have somewhere, where I was like, I think I like the association culture.
Mm. Yeah.
I like it's the same people, there's not a lot of turnover. Um, and, right away, I also was present to every association for the most part, has one tentpole event a year.
Yep.
Oh, they lead up to it. The magazines is lead up, and it's cyclical. So you have a season.
Yeah.
Every day isn't a snowball
Hmm.
in your face. It's just a little bit through the year. You're drinking out of a hose, right?
Yeah.
So I liked the cyclical part of the season. And me and Greg and Lindsay still have that.
Hmm.
And when you're in association leadership, you also know the other executives in association leadership.
Yeah.
So there's like guys like Greg that just likes doing the marketing for associations. And he had been in associations before I met him.
Mm.
So he's worked for a lot of, it's just a niche. Um, and, it's just this culture that I just love. And I also kind of thought years ago, it was there was a like when you look at should we print the magazine,
Mm.
and there's just something about holding it.
Yeah,
There's some
I'm sure that was, quite a debate, with
was
the internet and, all of the, newsletters and things like that. I'm sure that was definitely, I mean, I don't know how Reed's doing right now, but I can't imagine they've got, 1,000 employees working on the different associations or different,
no,
magazines. Yeah.
you're right. So yes, all the magazines when I left were being sold off one at
Mm.
a time. And there's
Yeah.
not many. You'll still walk into a plant
Oh,
factory
yeah.
and see a magazine. There's still business magazines. And that was our vision. That
Mm.
was our vision, is like if you stop at the headquarters of Nintendo,
Yeah.
that this magazine's in the waiting room,
Right. Yeah.
sitting there. And that's, what Greg does as the editor of this magazine is
Mm.
he works extremely hard keeping it relevant content so we can print it once a year. And thank goodness we have the support of a lot of people subscribing to it,
Yeah.
and then advertisers, advertising in it.
Mm.
So to go full circle on your question,
Yeah.
which is, like, am I missing anything? What was the full circle question?
I threw a lot out there,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, it was, like, just like talking about the leadership and like, what they're getting to do as part of ESTA, and the different associations that y'all got to work on and stuff, and I think, for me coming into this, I didn't know a lot about association culture and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's like a whole nother world out there that I have no idea about, and I'm so thankful that we have the Esports Trade Association, right? Because that's my niche, Greg might be magazines, but this is my niche, so but yeah, I mean, I think, what you just said about, your history with, coming up through the magazines and finding the associations, and that's like that's a whole world that I don't think a lot of people know about either, right? And so it's awesome that, I mean, there are a ton of associations out there that are not like structured the way that, like, I'm sure y'all have done your due diligence on the associations y'all worked on, right? And I will say in the esports space, right? Maybe not, here in North America, but, across the world and stuff. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of different associations. I mean, Sarab and I, we've seen a bunch of different associations or committees or, all these different things pop up. And it's like, I guarantee they're not as structured as what we have here at ESTA. They don't have like that background that y'all have been able to bring into, legitimize ESTA, So I think it's awesome getting to hear, that background.
And we have never applied for a grant.
Yeah.
The Esports Trade Association is a federally recognized 501c6, and it's for our members to apply for the grants. We're a, member organization owned by the members.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool structure. It's as you're learning, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
It's a servant leadership, and I think sometimes people start clubs, because they get a grant, and it's like, why not give this a shot?
Yeah, we've got stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And in my entire career, I've never received a grant. It has always been member held up, member led, and sponsored. So yeah, and it is. It's always a slow grind. But it's a really rewarding grind. And Lindsay has a hardcore love for administration and spreadsheets. Greg has a hardcore love for marketing and design and event and direction. And I have a hardcore love for people and community.
Yeah.
I do love supporting the game. I love supporting the play. I love supporting the event. And like you said, I grew up doing it. And then it's really important, as you're learning in association leadership, to get as many volunteers as possible. Because when you get to an event and everybody's unloading everything, and it takes something to get that chiming buzz of collaboration spreading. And they're about halfway through the event. If you like slow down, sit back and look at it, it's one of the most rewarding experiences you can ever imagine. And that is why I just love seeing brands, universities, high schools, students, OGs, professors, chancellors, Coca-Cola, all chiming together and just being part of that beat.
Yeah. And like making those connections, being that like home place where we can connect, and we've made good connections through ESTA that like it would have been pretty hard to make connections, with directly, right? And like you said, I mean, y'all are the ones like, okay, we're setting all this up, we're putting the infrastructure together, and then it's just like, I imagine, when you're taking the step back, you're like, wow, it's, we've allowed these conversations to happen now, and like I imagine they're just like, running themselves, right? Like getting to, like y'all have done the work of like getting everyone there, getting, the stage set, and then boom, the collaboration happens. And I'm sure like, that's what you're talking about with the beauty of stepping back and just seeing, like you said, all these people, universities, professors, Coca-Cola, all these different, companies and organizations coming together. And I am super excited for Esports Next. And before we jump to Esports Next though, I do, want to go back to, those members, right? I mean, you've mentioned like you never, had to get a grant and stuff for ESTA or any of the organizations you've worked on. But, when it comes to the members for ESTA, part of this podcast is to, recruit more members, right? We want more people to be part of ESTA. We want more people to be engaged and involved and stuff. And so what I would love to kind of get from you is like, what are some of the benefits of joining ESTA? How can people join ESTA? Because I think that's really important, for not just getting the people to Esports Next, right? But, it's not just that one-time connection, right, that people are going to get to make, right? It's how do you continue that relationship and connection going forward? And so when it comes to being an ESTA member, I guess, what does that look like? From what the founder would say, this is what ESTA membership looks like. This is what the benefits are.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, Greg. One of the hardest things that I have to explain is always the value of a B2B membership
Yeah.
to a consumer.
Yeah.
And because consumers shouldn't be members.
Yeah.
It's a business organization.
Yeah.
The members
are businesses. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So that takes a really long time. Are we in year 9? So, and as it took about 2 years of stakeholder meetings before we launched, because we knew how long this was going to take and we knew how big of a commitment it would be.
Yeah.
So it might look like an overnight success, but technically maybe we're in year 11 and we might have 200 I don't even know, 100-ish businesses, but for every business there might be 20 deep with people.
Right. Yeah.
So you're definitely the business is paying for it, like AT&T or Comcast, a law firm, a university, but they might have 25 members.
Yeah.
So the stakeholders, the businesses, the governments, the cities, they know what a trade association is because they're at the top approving the
membership and joining and
yes.
Yeah. I'm sure they're part of multiple associations,
100%.
right? Of course. Yeah.
You know who does it, in my opinion? You know who runs associations the best, in my opinion, as a lifelong association executive? The bar.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Well, you know what? The American Medical Association does too. And I'll tell you why. Because they get the student member there.
Yeah.
So when the intern is interning like at the law firm, the law firm's a member, the intern is exposed to the mentors. And that was my dream.
Yeah.
To bring this to universities, high schools, and get these students opportunities that are lifelong, incredible relationship building. So because my internships weren't good. So it was a dream for me.
Yeah.
Sorry to put this in. I can't take that back. The dream for me to have students have awesome experiences so they can get an awesome job and they can have an awesome career, which oftentimes equates to an awesome life.
Yeah. No, I love that is like your purpose driven, like this is what I want out of this, this is what I want to do for people because, that's part of why we started the build phase is we want, people to recognize, one, esports is in the build phase of the industry, right? It's not as established as all these other industries. And part of it is, we recognize, very clearly, like, people need those opportunities. There are people hungry to be part of esports, but they have no opportunities or direction when it comes to that because it's so scattered. It's a very, you need to know who like they need to know who you are, kind of industry, right? And, I think what you just said there is just so awesome to hear. Like this is part of why it's B2B, right? But it has, that B2B is not just for those businesses to, bolster each other, right? But it's also to bolster from within themselves, the opportunities for people to come and join and be the talent in these businesses and in this industry and really grow it, And I think that's something esports really struggles with, right? It's a very unique industry that, it's an entertainment product, right? One of the biggest costs in the industry is the players that are 15 to 18 years old, and a lot of the supporting cast, right, of, coaches or, just organization admins and stuff like that, right? It's, they're coming from other industries, and oftentimes we don't get to build people from, up from, the ground level to be in these positions and stuff in the esports industry. And so it's like an old industry, but it's a young industry, and that there's been things around for a long time. But, we've gone through multiple waves of like, we've got a lot of funding to we don't have a lot of funding, to, all these different ways. And, I think, just again, highlighting that goal of like, we're trying to create opportunities for, like you said, those intern members, right? And I definitely get what you're saying about it's difficult to understand that the trade association is business to business, right? Because there's a million people that I know, from my college experience and, being connected on LinkedIn that I'm like, I would love for you to be part of this, part of ESTA, but it's not for individuals, right? It is for those businesses. And, hopefully, our goal here with the podcast is to get more businesses involved, right? To build up those people that should be, part of it and growing the industry. And so I just want to say I absolutely love and resonate with what you just said there on, the goal here for those kids. So.
Yeah, that's the goal. So, it's really important that the student has the support of their university
Yep.
or their intern employer.
Mm-hmm.
I personally would never advise someone to get a job, somebody that's a double digit, like a teen to young 20s person,
Yeah.
for a company that isn't part of the industry association. Never. Because the highest of ethic companies understand trade associations as old as time. And companies that aren't members of trade associations, I would just pause, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what you just said there, like, those companies who are established in, multiple associations, right? They understand that, and it's also like, that history and like, legitimacy, right? That you're talking about. I'm sure, what you're saying is like, I see a company who's part of multiple associations. I know this company's legit, right? And I know there's opportunity, whether with that company or the connections that company might have or that I might get through, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that was a big thing in fantasy sports. Like, if a company was a tournament organizer and they didn't pay their prizes, they wouldn't be a member.
Right. Yeah.
So then somebody calls me and I'm, running that association, and they say, I'm trying to get into a tournament or whatever. Well, I just say, look at our member list, because there's just very few times I've ever seen a member infraction, because people that are doing great business are parts of deeply intertwined in community.
Yeah.
So that's just.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, like I said, esports is not that established industry, right? There's not a lot of those people or companies that are like, at least long term, like been part of things like this, right? Outside of, like you said, some of those more established ones that you've named, AT&T, Coca-Cola, Comcast, those businesses are obviously, they're probably in 20 of them, right? They're all over the place, right? But for us, this is our first trade association we're a part of. Now, I don't know how many other ones out there that are relevant to us, but I think what you said there is great, and I think emphasizing the importance of the trade association to businesses, is something that I appreciate, and I think the more we're here to help. Like the more that we're pushing that to get other businesses that we know, like from a public standpoint, are like these are established businesses, right? But they just might not be part of ESTA yet, right? And I'm thinking a lot of tier one organizations on the esports side, or those universities, like you said, joining and being a part of it. Straub and I, we've had multiple conversations with, smaller organizations or, university, leaders and directors who, they're interested in these things, right? And that's part of our goal. We're trying to reach out and, spread the word and get that out there. So, I think that one of the things that I assuming you can connect with is the larger the association, the better product it is for everyone part of it, right? And so it kind of takes that like founding group to expand it and grow it,
And that's why we had to put a really small fee on the member chapter.
Yeah.
Because we really wanted to make sure that when you're out there with the leading the association as a chapter, it's a responsibility, and it's a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Would we rather just give it away? Of course,
Yeah.
but we need to make sure that the best practices are executed and followed, and there is a rhyme and rhythm to how you do things.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes typically, I think, 7 conversations or emails for a membership, because by the time the big boss signs up on it, it takes like a year, even if it's a yes all the way up.
Yeah.
So there is a long process to it, but really worth it. It's no matter what anyone would ever say to me, because there's companies that come in and they're kicking the tires and they're learning, but companies that are here to stay never leave. And that is how your events grow and the quality of the events grow. And by the way, if we had like a lot more money, we still wouldn't hire a super production team.
Sure.
We still want to get there and go, Greg, what are you doing for the Build Phase podcast?
Yeah.
Like, what's your plan?
Yeah, you're the chapter leaders, right? What are you guys doing to help support it? Yeah, for sure.
And how can we help?
Yes,
because if we don't have breakdowns together, then like we're not bonding too.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing's better than, oh my God, what do we do here?
Yeah.
And then you get through it, and then it's like you're better after.
Yeah. No, for sure. And, I definitely want to jump to Esports Next, because that is, that marquee event that we're all leading up to. It's the big show every year, right? So first off, tell me, I know this is something that you've said that you loved about, the different associations you have been a part of, right? But Esports Next, I guess, what did it look like when it first started, and what are we going to be expecting in April whenever we're all going to be, I believe it's in Fort Worth, right?
It's in your chapter,
yes,
which is why you guys are getting the show.
Yes, no, I know. I didn't know if it was like downtown Dallas or in Fort Worth. I was pretty sure it was in Fort Worth.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, because you guys have Dallas, Frisco, and Fort Worth.
Yes, yeah. So it's right? A large area. There's a lot of venues that it could be held at, so for sure.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, Dallas is just a monstrosity.
Yes.
Fort Worth is special. Years ago, I had a fantasy sports, an FSTA event.
Yeah.
At that Fort Worth, but in the Omni.
Yeah.
This one's at Dickey's Arena alongside the Blast.
Yes.
And then we have our sessions off-site at the Botanical Gardens. We wanted to have a venue that would be the opposite of a tournament venue.
Yeah.
Dickey's is amazing, and we'll also be at the Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. We had a choice of a couple of venues. We had a museum and a couple things right there by
Sure.
Dickey's.
Yeah.
So, they're all different. That's such a good question. They're also different. We've done events alongside NASCAR Chicago Street Race, the Super Bowl, DreamHack.
Yep. That was last year was in DreamHack here. Yeah. I was so sad to miss it. My sister-in-law was graduating high school, so unfortunately I was not able to make it last year. I was very excited about it, and then life happens, right? So I'm so glad it's in our backyard again this year.
I'm so excited too. I'm so excited that you're going to be showcasing your chapter in the build phase. If I'm being completely transparent, they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
We have some things that are tried and true to associations. We always have an award show.
Yeah.
This year it's being produced by the Texas A&M group again. And I know.
Yes.
And it takes something to have the students lead it, but it's just so worth it. So that's a highlight. We always have an awards show, but that's a highlight for me personally. This is the first time we're having it ran by the students, which I think will be neat.
Yeah.
We always have a research component. We like to deliver something like hot off the press kind of feel.
Yeah.
We always like to do some cool sessions. I mean, that goes without saying. It is the trade association's responsibility to do some awards.
Yeah.
It goes down in history versus an award show company.
Yeah.
I've never worked for an award show company. That's a newer thing in association leadership that we're seeing just awards like the Grammys.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep that best practice of recognition and celebrating our community. So that's always one of my favorite parts. We do the coffee connection in person.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that. I am so looking forward to seeing all of our friends on Coffee Connections in person.
I like it. Now, I've done, the Coffee Connections in person, about a dozen times.
Yeah.
Personally, I love to get in a circle, and I love to get everyone introducing themselves, just like how we do it on Zoom. But sometimes I'm told I can't do that, and we don't have the time or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think there's something exhilarating about just saying who you are, why you're here, and what you're doing. And it's really cool for networking. So I love doing that.
Yeah.
I love our speed networking. That's really fun.
Yeah.
We line up in huge long tables and you just go back and forth.
That's awesome. Kind of like speed dating.
Exactly. And you go the different directions.
That's awesome. So I'm so excited for this. This is going to be so much fun.
I always say when it's done, you have a few hundred new friends when you leave.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is so fun. Awesome. Well, so with Esports Next, so we've got the different networking sessions and things like that. What else besides obviously the Build Phase podcast being there? What else are we going to be expecting, at Esports Next?
Well, I mean, it would behoove me to say the highlight is the tournament.
Yeah.
Dickey's Arena is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that arena. Like I'm in Chicago. So we have like Wrigley where it's the old benches and the stuff.
Y'all have history, y'all have got Wrigley, you've got Soldier Field, right? Yeah.
We do. And I'm not complaining. I love Chicago. But this is like the Taj Mahal of arenas.
Yeah.
This arena is amazing. Blast is amazing.
Yeah.
They're such a great partner. The Counter-Strike tournament is going to be just awesome. We're getting behind the scenes tours of the arena. We're getting in there. I should say there's some really great surprises.
Sweet.
And yes, Blast is really rolling out the red carpet
That's awesome.
to showcase some amazing things. I believe we have a surprise panel at the arena for our members on Friday morning. Some impact report research is going to be released. There's so much goodness that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
So all of the events are good. There's just different. It's different.
There's a lot to get out of Esports Next, is what you're saying, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And I haven't been to Dickies yet. I was very sad. 2 years ago, they had the Fortnite World Championship at Dickies Arena, and a lot of our kids got to go. A lot of our parents got to go, and it sounds like such a great arena, such a great venue to go. I'm very excited to see it in person when we go, alongside Blast there. But before we close, I want to give you the opportunity to let people know how do they find out about Esports Next? How do they get involved with Esports Next? Do they have to be an ESTA member? Do they have to be part of a business to go? What do they need to do to ensure that they get to go to Esports Next?
Yeah. So obviously, if you haven't got your tickets to the Blast event, definitely do that soon because their events sell out.
Yes.
We're a business, alongside the tournament. And so if you would want to go to our website, the Esports Trade Association is esportsta.org. You can reach out to me, Megan Van Petten, or yourself. You guys are, or the DFFW chapter.
Yes.
And so, everyone is invited, whether you're a member, not a member. We have lots of universities coming, city government officials. Sometimes we do proclamations with the mayor's office. It's just a little bit of everything packed into a couple of days, and it will be the weekend of your life. I say, bring your friends, invite your parents, invite your children. There's fun for all. It's a PG-13 environment. It's a safe space. So all is welcome. Great question, Greg.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we're looking so forward to being there, not just to bring the build phase there, but to make those connections and see who else is out there that's part of this esports network that we've yet to meet with and yet to connect with and yet to get started building stuff together. So, Megan, that is going to be a wrap on the podcast. It's been so great having you, so great learning the history about ESTA, learning more about trade associations, what they do, and why, ESTA has been set up, so great and that it's in such great hands. And then, of course, learning about Esports Next, what we're going to be expecting, some surprises that we're going to be in store for, and learning how to get part of this build phase, here in the esports industry. It's been such a pleasure, Megan. Where can people find you? Where can they get connected to you? I just want to leave that space open for you.
I think I spend most of my time on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody does a search for me, they'll find me.
They'll find you.
I try to get back to anybody within 24 hours. That's my rule.
Awesome. Well, that is going to be it for the build phase. The MVP of ESTA was on this episode. Thank you again so much, Megan, for joining us. And catch us in our next episode. We'll have it out on all of our streaming platforms.